Hello and welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schultz. It is the off season. It's OTAs for our Seahawks, and I am joined by a couple of my good buddies. We got Clinton Bonner, and we've got Mr. Adam Emmert. Adam, how you doing?
Hey, I'm awesome, man. Nice sunny day out and a great day to talk Seahawks here on Memorial Day. I'm sure you agree with that, Clinton.
I do. I just learned a new lesson about sluicing, so that was fun before we got going. So I might become a sluicer myself, man. And
you want to come out and be a prospector with me?
I do. At least for like a week, maybe like 3 or 4 days. That sounds like
that's
fun.
all I'm gonna do.
Yeah, just see what comes up. It's a little cloudy here today on Memorial Day. However, the last 2 days, like Meatloaf said, boys, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. The last 2 days were pristine in the Northeast. So little clouds today, no biggie. Perfect day to come talk OTAs because there was lots of gossip there, Brandon.
Yeah, hopefully everybody enjoyed their extra long weekend. I know our Seahawks, they had the weekend off for Memorial Day holiday, but we got to hear a little bit before the weekend from Coach Mike Macdonald. We got to hear from Geno Smith and Rayshawn Jenkins on the defensive side. So got to hear a little bit from everybody. And I don't know, we could probably even go back. I have a few comments even about just some of the press conferences from rookie minicamp. So I'll share those as well. But yeah, I think we wanted to talk a little bit of OTA roundup. And if anybody isn't familiar with what OTAs are, that is organized team activities. They start out on May 20th this year for the Seahawks. And we heard the press conferences from the 22-23 practices, and then they're going to kick back up here this week, May 28th through the 31st, and then a couple days in June, too. So OTA is going to be going on for the next couple weeks, mandatory minicamp coming up in June, and then it will be the off season for real because nothing will be going on up until we got training camp coming up here in, late July, I think. So yeah, if you guys want to get into it, because I think we heard some interesting comments from our new head coach, Mike Macdonald, and I think I'm going to kick it over to Adam. Adam, what was your major takeaway from Coach Mac?
Yeah, out of all of the press conferences and interviews on the local radio stations, I found Mike's presser to be, I think, the most informative. A couple things that came out of that for me, and I'll let you guys kind of rank them. And, Clinton, I'm curious to where your concern level is for at least one of these. One, that they're just kind of getting some basics in on defense, and he's not really worried about much else. I thought that was interesting. I think his comments about where Abe is in his recovery gave me a pause for concern. The idea that they're like, so how's it going? It's hard to tell. Hard telling, not knowing. And that terrifies me. I don't like the idea of going into the season with George Fant starting out at right tackle. That doesn't really float my boat. And then lastly he was asked about the quarterbacks, and his endorsement of Geno wasn't like, boy, he's really learning the offense fast. He's really on it and, super accurate. And I really like the ways the ball's coming out of his hand. Anything about completions or just, play on the field. It was all, well, he's really professional and he's a good leader and, all the kind of proliferary things. And boy, it just felt super lukewarm to me. And then you contrast that with a kind of a throwaway comment that he had about Sam Howell, but it was kind of at the end of him talking about Sam being like, oh, we're really excited about the future. And it was kind of those three things is what really stood out to me in Mike's presser. I don't know if any one of those jumps out more than another, Clinton.
Well, they're all interesting for different reasons. However, from a concern aspect, for me, it's got to be the Abe indecision / bad word there, but just not knowing what's up with Abe and not being able to give anything more definitive than, yeah, well, got to give it some more time. We'll see. These are those nagging, persistent injuries. Carroll would flag it as like a legit, and then it's actually serious. And then he would just pedal it for this time of year and then into August and into the preseason. We're hoping to get him out there. And very often those kind of dudes just didn't get out there. They were, if they were like a rookie or if they're in their rookie season, they were redshirted if that was that kind of person, or they just end up having to take off way more significant time back on a pup or something like that. So from a concern aspect, the Abe news is the most concerning. The other stuff's interesting, but Brandon, concerning, is there anything more concerning than we possibly don't have our right tackle back?
I was most concerned about the Abe Lucas news because, this is kind of one of those problems where we were trying to look for clues throughout what they were doing with the draft. And if they went offensive line early, is that going to be the clue that maybe there's an issue there that they need to find their future young right tackle? And maybe George Fant was the move because the quote was him saying it's hard to tell. We're shooting for camp right now. So that it's just that they're hoping that he's available for camp. They aren't even sure. So that's definitely the biggest concern because this is what's going to be protecting Geno Smith or Sam Howell. I think it's going to be Geno. One of the things I didn't take as much away from the quarterback comments, Adam, because I think the part of me that was more dialed in on the quarterback side was, like you said, with Coach Mike, he just didn't seem that concerned about the offensive side. Because I go back to the rookie minicamp when they asked him, what have you seen out of the quarterbacks? And his answer, literally, he said, it was good to see them complete some balls today. And then he goes on to say, I was a little upset that we didn't take the ball away a little bit more on defense. So asked about how the quarterbacks looked. And they completed some passes. Like, he seems very much disconnected from the offensive side of the ball. And then, so that's why I was more dialed in on Geno Smith in his press conference. And he was like beaming through the press conference. And I think that he is really excited about what he is going to do in this offense because he said, I'm a drop back passer and this is a drop back offense. And I think based on what he's seen so far, I think he's kind of excited.
Yeah, I definitely get the impression from Geno that he's fired up to be working with Grubb at this point. And I thought that was kind of an odd comment though, too, is like, well, was Waldron's offense really not a drop back offense? Like, honestly, I was frustrated with Waldron a lot throughout the season for not getting Geno on the move more, where you're like, come on, man, where's that boot stuff and sneaking the tight end out the backside and all that stuff? Like, that just kind of went away for stretches for the Seahawks. So maybe he's speaking in terms of just a lot more shotgun and sitting back in the gun and winging the ball around. Maybe that's it. Who knows? It's again, a little hard telling, not knowing. Geno just seemed fired up to be there and for it to be his team once again going into this year and taking the leadership thing by the horns. Then that was one of the things that Mike was saying. He's like, we're looking forward to seeing his next step as a player and a leader. And, honestly, Geno went out there and said pretty generic quarterback things that didn't have much to it. And I'm curious what you guys think, but I think my biggest takeaway through OTAs this far is how little hype and how little information about what's actually happening there has come out compared to years past. Like, I've been following a few other teams throughout this OTA process. I mean, especially some like drafted quarterbacks, and holy smokes, is there a lot more of, this reporter talking about what this guy did, or the coach is really expounding on how a player is developing or whatever it is. And Pete would do that a lot too. But in these pressers, man, first off, they're very limited, right? Mike, Jenkins, and Geno, and that's it. That's all you got. And no news on Byron Murphy and exactly what he's doing. No news on Witherspoon taking the second year leap, or, it's just been so quiet. That's what's really struck me.
Well, there's a couple things. There's a lot there, right? So I'm going to go in reverse because you just mentioned Byron Murphy. I think the adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so I'm not sure what his thighs are worth, Brandon, but his thighs are worth a lot of words because they don't need to say too much about him. Just once a day, they put out an image of the guy's tree trunks and they go, yeah, that's our guy now. So from a thigh perspective, really looking good for Byron Murphy. The Geno part, Adam, for me, the processing and the thing about Geno is I think we all feel, and I think folks who watch him feel that he is a very good processor out there. He's fast. He moves through his progressions very well, like a professional NFL quarterback, not a one read and okay, if the slant's not there, I'm taking off running. That's not him. He processes very, very well, and it goes through the 1, 2, 3 backside, like you said, whatever it is. I think he's interpreting the install from Grubb early as I'm going to get a chance to, I hate this term, but I'll say it, lean into what he does really, really well, which is have a little bit more depth, process the field for maybe a tick longer, and find the open guys. And then you look at the composition of the team and you look at move tight ends, you look at JSN, players like that, and you go, all right, I can start to see why he's probably really excited. I think Geno probably feels that he is one of the top processors again in the NFL, probably thinks highly of himself there. I think he's right. So that's probably where I think he gets that fizz he's getting right now, Brandon.
Yeah, well, when you talk about the processing part, he talked about how much he is able to process the offense and work. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to have any problem learning this offense because I've learned umpteen offenses in my NFL career. And so going through this process is nothing new to me because I've done it in so many different places. So I think he's, partially proud of that fact that he is able to do that. And yeah, he was also proud of the fact of he hit 21 on his monitors, which I'm assuming is 21 miles an hour on those monitors that they wear. And then he said, he ended up dropping back down because some other people are faster than him. But if we're getting fast Geno, like Geno in his mid-30s running 21 miles an hour, heck yeah.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. Yeah, his mobility underrated in terms of all the skill sets that he brings to the game. And Clinton, you're right on with his processing for sure. Brandon, you were talking about, he was saying, I've seen lots of offenses. I've learned a lot of offenses. And I was like, I doubt this is like the Rex Ryan Jets offense. Like maybe it's a little closer to the Phil Rivers offense that he was with there for a minute, or
might be like the West Virginia offense.
There it is. That's exactly where I was going. I was like, he played in the spread at West Virginia. Like this probably seems pretty familiar to him just from that connection. Now he struggled in the league because he came from a spread offense. So we'll see how a spread offense and him actually do.
Interjecting, I think he struggled in the league because his landing spot was pretty dreadful. His numbers were, for a rookie, his numbers were not that bad. A rookie second-year guy, they were not that bad. Super high expectations, second-round pick. He's kind of run out the building. Just imagine if there was a little bit of patience with a player like Geno Smith. Not a decade's worth of patience. And credit to Carroll and team for believing, having him there, keep re-signing him, keep bringing him back year after year, courting him away from potentially other scenarios. And I think it actually kind of speaks to, look, they were in love with Drew Lock for a while. And we were talking about it earlier. They're seemingly in love with Sam Howell. I think Schneider's got this thing of just overly courting the backup for whatever seasons down the road, because maybe he doesn't get to do the thing he said he wants to do every year, which is draft a freaking quarterback, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm a little tired of the organization's Sam Howell obsession. I honestly do not get it in any way, shape, or form. So I guess
where
we'll
did
see
you get obsession though
goes.
out of the press conference? Like I didn't get any kind of obsession feels about Sam Howell.
Oh, just the idea that, John was really high on him during the draft process and then had an opportunity to go out and trade away draft capital for a guy who's a bottom 5 starter in the league, and talk about the excitement of that. I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't even know why he's in the conversation as a starting caliber quarterback for this team when you have Geno Smith on the roster. I mean, it's levels difference between the two players. Levels.
But it's not different than how they handled and talked about Drew Lock.
Right. I think Drew Lock and Geno Smith are much closer than Sam Howell and Geno Smith.
I guess I feel like Sam Howell, Drew Lock are fairly similar too.
I'm on the, and you guys know me, I'm on the, I think Sam Howell could play a little football. And I realize there's a pretty big spectrum of feelings just within the three of us. Look, I saw him make some really big man throws on a bad Commanders team, thrown to the Wolves. Another thing, like, to me, his trajectory, okay, where Geno was a second rounder out of West Virginia who, if in many ways, I think in different years, think about Geno's West Virginia year. Imagine he had that in 2023. He'd be first overall or second overall. Like literally, he'd be clearly in the top 12, right? With the 5 or 6 dudes going. It was a bit of a different era, and you can't run that kind of thing in the NFL, and that was more pervasive. But the Sam Howell to Geno mapping, it's actually kind of interesting, where second rounder with big expectations ends up in a crap scenario, and a couple years later, Geno gets punched in the jaw, and it's bad news bears, and he's out in New York. But Sam's experience with Washington's not too dissimilar. Just dysfunctionally offense. They've changed coordinators. Then in his case, throwing the ball 50 times a game with bad protection, and they expect him to, not throw interceptions when they're down. I don't know, guys. Like, I just don't think that stacks up very favorably for a young quarterback, where other scouts were like, hey, if Sam Howell came out this year, he's probably right in that Drake May territory.
Nope, not even close.
But this is what
they're not even in the same category.
But okay, why? Give me some whys.
Why? Number one, like, Drake May is a little more athletic than Sam Howell. Sam Howell is a very slow processor. Sam Howell last year was a good stats, bad quarterback. Like, he was playing in an offensive Bieniemy there that coming from Andy Reid and chucking it all around the field. Look, you're going to pile up numbers if you're doing that game in, game out. He's not consistent. He's not accurate. I think Drake May has way more wow throws on his tape, at least on the college level, coming from North Carolina, both of them, right? They're completely different prospects to me. There's a reason Sam Howell went, like, what was it, 5th or 6th round or wherever it was?
Yeah.
It was 5th.
Yeah.
5th. He dropped
exactly. In an era where people were really looking for quarterback. In a draft, they were really looking for quarterbacks.
Not that draft.
Well, that's my entire point. There weren't many quarterbacks in that draft, and yet he still managed to go in the 5th. And if you're
he got hurt a
quarterback,
lot by not coming out of college a little bit earlier, because all of his weapons ended up coming out, and they didn't have anybody behind him to replace him and replace them, because that was what De'Ami Brown came out the year before. One of the other running backs who went to the Jets, he came out that year too. And so, yeah, the offense was terrible. He didn't have an offensive line his last year of college. Like, he got hurt bad, and it was considered, I think, the year before as a first round potential prospect. But
if you like a dude who likes to run and isn't much of a thrower, then sure, Sam Howell's your guy. Absolutely.
I know you're, you could probably rank who's higher on Sam Howell in this group. To me, it's not that important because he's the backup quarterback. And I think that I think it's more organization speak as to hyping up your potential backup quarterback, because you never know when that guy is going to go into the game, and you want him to have some confidence that the organization is behind him and believes in him. And so, yeah, they're going to talk him up. And so, because essentially that's what they did with Geno Smith. Even when he was behind Russ, like, there was some talk and hype about Geno and how great of a quarterback he was. And so when he got that moment, then there was I think it goes into that confidence building aspect of an organization. And that's what you want to do with the guy who's your number 2 quarterback.
I don't know. I guess the piece for me is I must be just misremembering. I don't remember Geno being talked about at all in the Russ era. I just don't remember it. Maybe he was. Maybe there was some preseason speak that we're covered back here.
Oh, Pete loved him. Yeah.
I don't remember Pete loving. I don't remember Pete loving him until Russ was gone. I thought he was gone. Then I've always loved him. Right? Or hurt. Right?
You heard about Geno when Russ got hurt, and then all of a sudden, well, Geno's been looking great in practice, and I love Geno. Like otherwise, I mean, shoot. I mean, maybe part of it was with Russ there, the media wasn't asking questions about the backup quarterback in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, there wasn't hardly a peep about Geno until it was time for him to play.
I don't want to get into your old man memories of 5 years back that you guys can or can't remember. It's fine.
I have a problem remembering actual people on the team right now. So that happens from time to time. So
Rayshawn Jenkins is on this team, and he was hyped up about the fact that, gentlemen, we are getting the Baltimore defense. He talked about watching tape of the Baltimore defense. They're even doing Baltimore defense things. One of the things we found out in questioning from Coach Mike is that they're wearing their So before we get to Rayshawn Jenkins, how about this little tidbit? Wearing actual game jerseys during practice as opposed to practice jerseys. Coach Mike says it gives you the feel that you're actually of game day being in the regular jerseys as opposed to the practice jerseys. Clinton, what do you think of that?
Well, my favorite part of all of that, we'll go back to the quarterbacks for a second, is that whether it's Geno or Sam, they're wearing the throwbacks. Now, my only concern is that, are they colorful enough so people understand? Don't hit them. Don't hit those guys. That blue is a different shade of blue. Do not hit those guys. Hence the red penny they usually wear. I think people are smart enough to know that's my quarterback, man. I'm not going to hit him. Though there was that story last year that maybe Frank Clark maybe injured Geno in a practice. And that was like, maybe why it was never substantiated, but maybe why Frank ended up on the skids early. With that, they get to wear the beautiful throwbacks. So yeah, Brandon, I'm all about that every day of the week, man. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10 on how much this matters, this is a 0.5. But hey, man, if Mike likes it and everybody's excited about it, cool. I've got zero problems with it either. I guess, that you don't get the excitement of putting on your game day jersey, I guess would be the only downside. I don't know.
I always wondered why they had practice jerseys. Like, what's the point of practice other than putting the quarterback in a different color so that people know, even though, like you're saying, Clinton, how do you not know which one your quarterback is?
Without the ball dropping back. Yeah. Typically him. Honestly, my guess would be cost. That would be my flat out guess, like some sort of practice jersey that's more, you order them in bulk. They're way more, whatever they are, 20, 30, 40, 50% less. And teams want to save money because whatever, they run a business, right? That's honestly what I think it probably is. So look, the way I look at this too is more of those cool collectible cards with cut up little bits of now practice worn jerseys.
Oh, yeah, the tiny pieces of Seahawks stuff.
Tiny pieces of Seahawks stuff that are actually game jerseys, but worn in practice, which makes them, I guess, maybe all the more rare, right? So more collectibles.
Yeah, there we go. We need that.
I think part of it, Brandon, is just the idea for some coaches that you had to earn the game day jersey on game day, and so you wore the practice jersey. I think there's something to that. I don't know.
That could be part of it too. Well, we know that Rayshawn Jenkins is going to earn his game day jersey once that time comes around. I hadn't really heard him talk a whole lot. I really enjoyed his interview, and like I was getting into earlier, we're getting the Baltimore defense because that was one of the things that he was talking about, was going back and really reviewing that. And I mean, that was kind of it. It brought me back to the reason why I was excited about the hire of Coach Mike anyway, is that I am really excited to see how this defense gets implemented with some of the players that we're familiar with. And now we got a new guy in Rayshawn Jenkins. I kind of feel like by the fact that they're putting him out there, I wonder if he's being positioned as one of these. We need a new captain, right? With Bobby Wagner gone, with Quandre Diggs gone. Are we seeing him now be positioned as maybe the defensive team captain?
It's possible. I mean, I would kind of look more towards Nuosu or maybe somebody like that. I did enjoy the guy's presser, though. I mean, nice speaker. Seems like a smart dude. Chose us over the dirty whiners, and that always feels nice. Now, the reason he did that feels a little less nice. It sounds like he's only here because he's getting out of a little bit of taxes.
That's fine by me. That's a perfectly good answer, man.
But
yeah,
man, like, I mean, he kept saying, well, I wanted to be on a contender and all that. And then they're like, well, you know, at the end of the day, it's just
a little bit of money
like,
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, that makes me feel a little less good. I don't know about you, Clinton.
Yeah, I'll try to make you feel a little more good instead of less good. So maybe it's partly some more Scotto in his pocket, and you know, can't blame a guy for wanting that, and just probably the stature of. It's like, I'll give an example. It was maybe 2010, 2011, or something like that, and I'm sitting in a room with the founder of a company I was working for, and all good. And he asked me, he goes, who would you rather work for today, Apple or Sony? And I was like, Apple. And he looks at me and goes, I should fire you. He goes, look, Apple is at their peak, their pinnacle. He's like, yeah, you can go in there, maybe make a little bit, maybe do some things incrementally, but what are you really going to go do right now in Apple? He's like, Sony is in disarray right now. He's like, you want to go there and change something, go to Sony, put your skills to use. So maybe a little something there where it's like a bit more of a blank slate and more opportunity, plus a little more money in the pocket, get to wear game jerseys. And Brandon, maybe you're right. It is an interesting choice to say, okay, Rayshawn, you're the dude we're picking. Like you're going to be the defensive representative. Someone made that choice. They didn't just walk into the locker room and go, oh, Rayshawn, you're right here. Go ahead, grab the mic. I don't see Macdonald making any choices like that haphazardly. I just don't think
he's already got the nickname from Coach right. Mike. He got, we didn't, that was the thing that was odd to me. It's just in past years, like Adam was saying, we see and hear from a lot more guys. And so when it is down to Geno, the head coach, and Rayshawn, you do wonder what goes into some of that decision making. And then when you hear him talk about as far as him processing the new defense and being a part of the team, it makes me wonder if he's already kind of standing out then among that group. And that was the impression that I got just based on his comments.
Yeah, the one, I'll hop back in. The one thing that I think was the most important thing he said, which is also like, hey, Macdonald could have chosen Spoon to go out there and say, hey, Spoon, you go out there and go do this. But he's a second-year guy, and 1 year in the league, had a specific system. This is a very different system. And by the way, I think this system's going to suit Spoon's skills very, very well. And then to hear, they asked Jenkins about him, and he was like, he lit up. He's like, yeah, he's like, that guy, you could see special traits like all over the place. And that's kind of cool. It's like, we saw year one, but then to see a veteran step in and know the guy for a few weeks and be like, yeah, like, look, like a guy like Rayshawn Jenkins has been around elite talent his entire football life. I don't know when that began for him, but whatever it did, he was recognized early, put into certain paths, and away you go. Like, that's how it works for those kind of athletes. And he still gets to a level like the NFL in a premium city like Seattle, a really good franchise, which I always say is like a platform, and sees a guy for a couple of weeks and goes, yeah, that guy's a different level of talent. I don't know, guys. That excited the crap out of me. What about you, Adam?
Oh, for sure. Knowing that a guy, like you said, who's been around NFL talent for a hot second here, can see the it factor when it comes to Spoon. And I think it jumps off the screen every time he steps on the field, for sure. I think the other factor for Jenkins here is just the idea of playing for Coach Mike. I mean, if I'm a defensive player, especially a safety, I've seen what he's done with safeties and linebackers and be like, yeah, man, I want to go play with that guy. I'm going to make money. Like, if I go play with that guy. And the idea that you get to go to an organization that has been winning consistently and all that stuff. But back to your point, Brandon, about the idea of just one dude each. And like, so they tried out Geno. Geno's a starting quarterback. Geno's a professional quarterback, which means he's a professional public speaker. And he went out there, said a whole lot of nothing, did his job, got back to practice. Good job by him. Jenkins, I think what really struck me the most was just how eloquent he was. And you were like, oh, okay, I can totally see why you put Jenkins out there. Whether or not they think he's a leader, I don't know. But you put him out there because you know he's going to be able to say all the right things and get off the stage and not reveal anything. Coach Mike doesn't say jack. He says stuff, but he doesn't say jack. And that's fine. This isn't a critique in any way, shape, or form either. It's just very different than before. And it might be for the better. Like, one of the things when Mike was hired is kind of like listening to his pressers in Baltimore. It's like, he's kind of a slightly kinder, gentler Belichick in some ways. Like, he's not going to give you anything. And I think that's a good thing.
But I'll pass to you in a second, Brandon. But this is what I said months ago when we were going through who might they hire. I was like, this guy's he's way closer to Harbaugh than you think he is. And he's actually less words and a bit more. He's younger, so he doesn't come off as a curmudgeon. But I think he's got a whole lot of hardcore curmudgeon in him. And I don't mean that's a bad thing. It's a flip from what Pete was. But there were comments last time we talked about, hey, Macdonald doesn't really say much. And there were some YouTube commenters, Brandon, that were like, well, is it any different than Pete saying a whole lot of words, but not saying anything anyway? It's just like less words to not say too much. Or who do you think actually does share more, Macdonald or Pete with all of his words, Brandon?
Well, we did get to a point to where I feel like we at least got a sense of where Pete was going with certain things or leaning certain ways. And I still don't think I have that sense yet with Coach Mike. So I think just because I was able to, after 10 years of having Coach Pete, you could at least, get a sense of which way the winds were blowing. And I don't have that with Mike at all. And so your comment, Adam, about picking the guy who is going to reveal the least, that might be exactly what we're looking at here, because I think about, they could have chosen some other veteran, I suppose, that would fit that mold. And I bet,
But you want one of your dudes, right? Like Jenkins is one of the new faces that has come in under this regime.
Leo Williams.
And so I think that was important.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple other choices, of course, but I mean, in comparison to maybe guys that have been around for a little while, I think that might be why.
Well, even like Julian Love, who's been here just a year, but like you're saying, like who's guy and Macdonald inherits Love and then brings in Jenkins. So it is.
Well, in that case, I want to see Baker. Baker is awesome on camera too. Like,
yeah, Baker could be cool. Well, we'll get to see him as this all rolls on, right? We'll get to see all of them. So, one
last thing before we. Okay, go ahead, Adam.
Oh, I would very much like to hear less about the freaking defense, and I would like to hear anything about the offense. Anything. Like, there's just so little information out there regarding the offense, and it's easily my bigger concern of the two groups going into the season from a scheme coaching perspective. So I would love to hear from K9 and, how he feels like he fits into this offense, or the offensive line about, the types of schemes that they're looking to do. And, if it feels more like power or if it's a lot more finesse type stuff, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear from freaking Grubb, man. Like, I want to hear from the dude. And it's under wraps, and really it's probably good strategy, because one of the things the Seahawks have going into this season is an element of surprise with everything being completely new. And so maybe Mike is chasing that edge and trying to keep that in house so they can see around the next quarter a little better than the next team, and they don't know what's coming.
I think we'll get to hear from Grubb. I don't know if I would have any kind of takeaways hearing from the running backs, because they're just going to take the ball and run. And I don't think it matters too much scheme-wise to them as far as how their job works. And then offensive line, I don't know. We just generally don't hear from those guys anyway, so it wouldn't surprise me if they weren't out there. The one other thing I wanted to ask you guys about before we get on out of here, we heard Jamal Adams visited the Ravens this past week. Would you feel too upset if Jamal Adams went to the Baltimore Ravens?
I'll go quick and say, no, I wouldn't be too upset. I actually do think he could fit back in Seattle potentially to do some limited things. I do think it could potentially work. The thing is, I don't think his speed and athleticism are where they need to be an effective NFLer. Now, he could come back, another full year removed from another major injury. But to play Adams. What's more likely game? I don't think it's very likely he comes back as a athlete like he was before, an instinct who depends on instinct and then some raw talent to go make some plays. I don't see it, guys. So yeah, shortly, Brandon, if he goes to Baltimore, good luck. And I think we'll be okay. How about you, Adam?
I hope he signs somewhere. I hope he gets another contract. I hope he keeps getting them checks. He's not a bad guy. It's not like he came here and stunk it up on purpose or just didn't try. His body completely gave up on him. Like, it's just where he's at this stage in his career. And to be able to compete, like Clinton was saying, at an NFL level, like being 60% Jamal Adams, you know, after all the injuries, it's just not going to get you there. So I don't think he has really any time left in the league to be an effective player, a meaningful impact sort of player. Maybe a rotational guy that comes in and spells you for a snap or three here or there. But those days are just done. And it's not his fault. It's just his stupid body said no. And I feel bad for the guy on that level. And so would I be mad at Ghost Bowler? Hell no, man. Keep getting them checks.
Yeah, I guess if his body's going to keep failing on him, then I'd be more happy if he ended up going to the 49ers, who were reportedly in contact with him, because then it breaks down there, and we can enjoy the fact that they have to scramble their roster a little bit to deal with that. That would work out for me.
Yes, more Niners tiers, the better always, right?
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.